Excellent. So, Frank, when did you first realize you wanted to get involved in blockchain and crypto? What was that moment, that inspiration, that spark that brought you into this industry we all love?
Yeah, it's interesting. So actually, for me, it's fairly recent. It's about a couple of years ago, I'd say. So one of my good friend, Matt Liu, who is the CEO at Origin Protocol, was chatting with me. We were having lunch, and he started telling me about this space, the blockchain space. And I have to say, initially, I didn't get it. I was like, I don't see what's so fantastic about it. And then, I came back home at night, and then I started reading about it. I started reading the white paper about the Ethereum virtual machine, and I started thinking about the possibilities. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting, right? I was like, I get it now. I understand. I was looking at the code, looking at the smart contracts, looking at things that were happening, and that was, I think, that was the key, the turning point for me. And then from now on, I started, looking at what Origin Protocol was doing. I started looking at all the open source projects that were happening in that space. And so yeah, and then I got more and more into it, and so eventually I decided to leave my job. So I was at a big company, Dropbox, and so I was like, I have to do, I have to join this space, and so I decided to join Origin Protocol full time. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we got to steal you away from your big corporate job.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a trend that we see, which is people want to be part of this history, because that's what it is. It's history in the making. And even though it's 10 years, almost 11 now, since the first Bitcoin white paper was written, it still feels like we're super early.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Like, this is a very young space, and frankly, I feel it every day, right? When I look at the tools we use, when I look at what we, the user friction that we face when we're trying to build applications, but that we want to put in front of real users and not crypto experts or crypto savvy users, right? There's still a lot of work ahead of us, which is super exciting. I think it's it means there's tons of opportunities to make things better and to really get wide adoption. And it also, frankly, makes it sometimes frustrating, right? You're like, oh, we are, it's so early. Like, why does it take so much time to build a DApp, right? It could be so much faster if we would build it with traditional technologies. But in the long term, yeah, there's definitely amazing potential, and that's what's really exciting about this space. The fact that to me, it's like cryptography first is like super exciting, right? I think so far I was discussing with my coworker Yupan. I was discussing about that the other day. So far it's amazing, like public and private keys have been around for like what, 20 years, right? It's not and still it's not used, right? Like, aside from securing websites, right? Aside from HTTPS,
or like
right?
messaging apps.
Yeah, messaging apps, right? But these are still like, but it's not used other than that. And there's so much potential about individuals owning their private keys and being able to sign, and other people being able to verify these signatures. There's so much potential. So that's one aspect of crypto, which I think is super exciting, is democratizing this use of cryptography for mainstream user. And then the other thing that that to me is super exciting is the other day, I was I'm originally from Europe, and I still have an old bank account over there, and I'm trying to to move all my money that's over there, move it over here in the US. and it is so complicated. Like the banks in Europe don't talk the same language as the bank in the US. They, in Europe they use IBAN. In the US they use Swift. So it's not compatible. It's insane, right? It should be so simple. So like crypto, that's within a few seconds, okay, I have money in this account there. I want to move it here. Boom, it's done, right? I mean, like, come on, this is. So I think that. So I think this is some of the things that I'm pretty excited about in terms of the type of foundational pieces of technology that that can be used as part of blockchain and in crypto in general. Yeah.
Yeah, and you touched on what's central, which is removing the need to trust a third party. Right. The only reason why it takes so long for our money to go from Europe to America is because traditionally we've had to go through a third party because there was no way for two strangers to trust each other without where we are now with these new incentives, right? Because we always had the cryptography. We just didn't have the incentive model to look at to set it up. Now, I'm newly acquainted with Origin. Actually, the way I became aware of your project is through Luca from Trips.
Yep.
Now, Trips is a marketplace very similar to Airbnb. And, we were talking about the tools he's using because, he's not a developer himself. And, being very passionate about the trip space and very experienced there, he knew what he wanted to do, but he needed the tool set to do it. So Origin's marketplace tool set seemed like a blessing to him. I mean, he couldn't stop raving about it. So, after I published that video, it made complete sense for us to talk. And what you touched on is exactly what it seems like you guys are doing, which is making a tool set, because you did identify one of the biggest problems is we don't have the tools today. That's where the frustration for the builders is, right? For people like me and Luca. And then what your tool set specifically does is it focuses on this key aspect, which is removing the need for a third party. So I want to understand a bit more about the tech stack, about what you're doing at Origin that allows for a removal of this third party between the buyer and seller and making these marketplaces.
Yeah. So I think you really got it. What we are trying to build is a platform, right? So Origin Protocol itself is not trying to build vertical applications, right? We want to build a platform. We want to build the what I would call the building blocks that other people can use, and we want them to be able to pick what they want, right? So we're gonna be offering different, if you want, services that they can pick from. They can use our smart contract for handling the payment aspect, for handling the escrow as well, right? So when you have a peer-to-peer transaction, you have a buyer, typically a buyer and a seller, right? So depending on the type of service, the type of goods that's being bought, typically there is a period of time where the money needs to be in escrow. The buyer says, I want to buy the money goes in escrow. The seller, gets the offer, is going to ship the goods or provide the service, for example, providing the vacation rental, right? And then once both parties are happy, the money goes to the seller. So the payment, the marketplace, what we call the marketplace smart contract, is one component that we provide. We're going to be providing components around it. So things like the ability to search for the data in the marketplace, right? So searching for the listings, whether it's, again, vacation rentals, or whether it's a piece of art. We have a little, side marketplace that we developed to just as a showcase called the peerart.io, right? Which is built on top of the the OGN protocol platform. So being the ability to search and discover the type of products listings that you're interested in is another component of a platform that we provide. There is a component around identity, right? So, for me to buy something from you, I first want to make sure that you're a serious seller, right? That you're not trying to scam me. So, the identity component provides reputation, provides what we call verification and attestation, if you want. So, using our components, you can verify various different properties on your profile, your email, your phone, your social handle, so that based on that, as a buyer, if I see that you're a verified seller with all these different attributes, I'm more willing to trust you, right? And the same goes on the other side, on the buyer as well. So marketplace contract, search and discovery, identity. Another component we are providing is what we call a notification service, which basically is provides ways for the buyer and seller to get notified when there is some activity on the listing. So if I rent your apartment, I want to know that somebody's interested in it and made an offer for it, right? So notification service. We also provide peer-to-peer encrypted messaging, so that you can exchange securely with the buyer and the seller can exchange securely using our platform. So there's a number of components that we provide, and so the overall stack is based on the Ethereum blockchain, right? So all the financial transaction happens on Ethereum, and then the data itself is stored in IPFS, which is a distributed file store, right? Distributed blob store. You can store whatever data you want. And so, when it comes to storing the listing data, maybe the pictures of the listing, it's all in IPFS. But there is, if you want, there is a connection between the data in IPFS and the data on the marketplace, so that by reading our smart contract, you basically get pointers to these files in IPFS. And so we use the blockchain, if you want, as sort of like a public database that points to the files themselves, right? And so we use different techniques. It's obviously very expensive to store any data on the blockchain. So we use different techniques. Specifically for Ethereum, we use what is called logs. So the smart contract, whenever you create a listing on our marketplace, it emits, if you want, a little event, which is pretty cheap actually. And these days with the network congestion, it's getting more expensive. It's still pretty cheap to emit these little events on the blockchain, but are just little pointers to the real data in IPFS. And so that's really the foundation for the platform, the Ethereum blockchain and then IPFS. On top of that, we provide a JavaScript library, which allows to develop these decentralized application. And it's really it's really an abstraction on top of the rest of the platform. It's what you would interact with directly as a developer. You would use this SDK or this API, if you want, this library to build your application. And we decided to use, it's a little different compared to your typical JavaScript library. We are using GraphQL. So GraphQL is it's a nice way to represent your data and to be able to query it. So that's what we use as if you want, as the interface to our stack. It's a GraphQL interface. So that's the core platform. obviously, some of the components that I mentioned are really difficult to implement in a truly decentralized way, right? When it comes to search, when it comes to sending mobile notifications, right?
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Right. That's not available yet on in a decentralized way. So currently we provide these components as a central service. With the plan ahead of us to actually run a number of what we call origin nodes. So think about all these components that I mentioned, right? The discovery, notification, the messaging. We can package them, right? And then we envision that in the future there'll be a network of these origin nodes running everywhere in the globe, and so that it's not similar to blockchain, but it still provide sort of like decentralization in the sense that if one node goes down, right, the dApp can still look up in the registry and see, oh, there are these other nodes that are available, and the dApp can just connect to these nodes.
And do the nodes tie in with the OGN token?
So yeah, so the plan, and so this is still still very, very early. We are still
it's all
working
early.
on the roadmap.
It's all early. I know how it goes.
But the idea would be that the nodes operators, right, the people who decide to run these origin nodes on their server would get incentivized through the origin token, right? So through staking initially, I mean, probably in the long term, actually staking to make sure that they are honest and they are doing the right thing when they host these nodes.
They're not
slashing if they are not doing a good job, or if they are trying to if they are not hosting all the data, or not providing the type of service that they are supposed to. So staking and slashing to ensure that the nodes are honest, and then in the in the future, we think that there might be other ways to incentivize these node operators. You could think of the marketplace operators, right? So let's say I want to build my own marketplace for I don't know, selling cheese, let's say, right? And so I might be willing to pay these nodes for providing me these services, right? So we're still very early. We haven't these are just food for thoughts, but they are we think there are many ways to incentivize operators so that we have a whole network of origin nodes in the future.
Yeah, my mind is undecided about incentivized nodes. I think that currently a lot of signs point to that as a necessity. The argument between big blocks and small blocks is all because of hardware requirements. If hardware requirements are too high, who the hell's going to run them? So incentivize people at the same time. Does that threaten decentralization? Does that change the incentive models? It's not easy stuff. That's why I totally understand that, and I respect that answer, which is, hey, we're still talking about it. We're still discovering it. And that makes sense for how you're positioning the OGN token. Now, correct me, there was an ICO or something related to CoinList in the OGN token at some point?
Right, so there was a private round of funding through a CoinList. So private investors invested in the company and got OGN for that. Okay,
so it was private. OGN is not currently listed anywhere.
Nope.
And the idea is that probably within the next 12 to 24 months, you guys are going to have figured out exactly how you want to use that token and bring it to to the marketplace?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's totally reasonable to say that, if not sooner. I think the timelines are still up in the air, but yeah, we want to bring OGN to the market. We want to make it liquid. Aside from being useful to incentivize node operators, there is a number of use cases for OGN on the platform itself for the end users, right? So we currently, one thing we have on shoporigin.com, which is a showcase application that we built, right? So we really, we are already building a platform, but building a platform without knowing what your customers will need is, building in a vacuum is never good, right? So we made the decision to build these showcase applications. I mentioned part.io, there is shoporigin.com, there is cryptomerchant.com. So we have like these little, showcase applications. And so on shoporigin.com, you as a seller, when you create your listing, you can put OGN on your listing. And if you do so, we're going to promote the listing. Your listing is going to show up higher on the browse page and search page. Sort of like a promotional use of the OGN on the for the seller. So that's another use case. And then another thing we are really excited about is the Origin Rewards program. So as a user of a platform, right, as you create listings, buy listings, as you interact with the platform, as you verify your identity, you're gonna get rewards in the form of OGN, right? And right now we have a monthly program, so a monthly reward program. Every month we have different type of incentive that users can get. So, for example, I think this month you get some OGN, 150 OGN, I think, to download the mobile app, the shoporigin.com mobile app. You get OGN for verifying your identity or for sharing on Twitter some of our content. So there's a vast number of ways to reward users of a platform. And it's, and also what we are excited about is that, we want the community to benefit from any appreciation in the token in the long term, right? We want the early participants to, that tried our platform early on,
Right.
with all.
They're bringing value early on. You want to reward them for doing that.
Exactly.
And it sounds like, I mean, this is a great, so right now, it sounds like somebody can earn up to like what, maybe 1,000 OGN if they do all of these different.
Yeah, it's I think this month it's a couple thousand OGN. The referral program in particular allows you to earn more. So as you refer your friend and as they join the platform, you're gonna get some bonus OGN. So this month, I think if you do everything, you can pretty much get up to a couple thousand OGN. Yep.
Excellent. So if after this, I'd love to get a link to add to the description so anybody watching knows
Sure.
what they can do to get some
Yep.
to get some OGN for being an early adopter. Now there are two questions I've written down that I definitely want to go over. One of the ones I want to ask real fast is about existing third parties using the platform. I know about trips. Is there any other, shining example of Adapt using Origin?
Yeah, it's still very early. It's still something that we are trying to get more adoption for. So we have individual sellers, I'd say. So you have so right now on the marketplace there are thousands of listings. And while Trip is the biggest in terms of organization using the platform, We have sellers selling, from, their art, their, paintings to, we have gift cards. We have a lot of clothing, apparels. Like we have these other startups or crypto companies that are selling their goodies on the platform.
It's interesting. So creative services, like on the art and the merch side, seems to be where the most of the transactions are happening.
Yeah, we've got some good traction on that. The gift card also is picking up steam, I'd say, these days. There is some other platforms where you can buy gift cards, but I think buyers and sellers like the simplicity of the Origin platform. We are really trying to put a lot of effort in reducing user friction, right? It's like dApps, are known for being notoriously hard to use. And so that's really something we are putting a lot of work on.
Do people have to use MetaMask to interact with Origin's marketplaces?
So they can use MetaMask on desktop. On mobile, they can use our own wallet. So we have an Origin wallet, which allows you to store your cryptocurrency and to interact with the.
It's called Origin Wallet?
It's called the Origin. Oh, I should know that. I think it's called Origin Marketplace on the Play Store and the Android store.
Okay, so it's an Android only.
Sorry, on the App Store and the Android store. So it's both Android and iOS.
iOS, yeah. Excellent. Yeah, and some of the questions I ask is because I'm also learning, right? I'm trying to constantly understand and get a pulse of which industries are leading the charge in adoption, right? So, an interview I did a few days ago, the use case for Cartesi, I should introduce you guys. They're building tools that way you can use traditional Linux tool sets to develop dApps. They're leaning towards the gaming industry in the beginning, right? So like we see that gaming really is one of those early places where growth and use cases are. It's interesting to see that from a marketplace standpoint, the people who are interacting the most are artists, people who are doing things, shirts, art, as you said. And a lot of times when I ask these questions, it's that way I can tag them later and bring them also exposure. Right? Because it's not only important to bring your platform exposure, it's important to bring the users of your platform exposure, right? So like someone like Trips, because I think that those are the examples that as long as we're kind of like helping each other out and bringing everybody more exposure, that's a net positive for everybody in the industry.
Yeah, if I could just add quickly on top of this, is I think we're going to see adoption in markets where there is a middleman taking a huge fee, right? So if you look at the art example, like art dealers, they are taking like 30-40% of the money when a piece of art is sold, right? The artist gets a lot less than what the buyer buys it for.
Marketplace, right? Where the middleman takes a huge chunk is going to be the first places we're going to see people coming in.
That's our assumption. If you look at Airbnb, I mean, Trips, they think they can really perform well because Airbnb is taking 20-30% on these vacation rentals, right? You look at services like Uber and Lyft, right? It's in the same order of magnitude, right? It's like 20-30%. They are taking a huge chunk, right? Is
there an Uber or Lyft blockchain solution?
So we haven't seen any service yet. I think there's still quite a few components that are missing, but we would love to be able to address this market. All right, that would be anything that's peer-to-peer, basically anything where Whereas two people who can, interact with each other and without the middleman, that's where we want to position ourselves.
Now, one of the main question I have is around issue resolution.
Yep.
Because that's one of the roles that third parties really provide value. How do you handle issue resolution in a decentralized application?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So on our platform, what we do is when a buyer makes an offer on a particular listing, right? They pick an arbitrator, right? They decide who they want to use to arbitrate any dispute, right? And so it's a third party, basically. It's a third party that the arbitrator will get compensated for their service. So if there's a dispute between the seller and the buyer, the arbitrator comes in and is going to make the decision in terms of, oh yeah, the seller didn't ship the goods, so the buyer should get a full refund. Or maybe, oh no, the buyer rented that house and totally trashed it, right? And the seller is right. So there is basically a third party involved, and it's handled at the market in the smart contract. Whereas there's this notion of an arbitrator that makes the final decision in terms of where the funds are going to be allocated in the end.
Okay, and I think that's a common solution, right? Which is you have another participant, which is the arbitrator, acts as that. I think that's still an area that needs massive amounts of focus and figuring out the incentive models again, because that's just one of those spaces I think is still unanswered. So I'd love to do a follow-up interview where we can speak specifically about arbitrator logic, looking at the incentive models and really poke into that. But no, I think what you guys are doing is fantastic. The fact that this platform allows people like Luca to go out and just build their idea rather than get muddled into the tech stack is fantastic. I'm going to make sure to share with everybody in the audience. It's easy for you to get some OGN. Not easy. You're going to have to do some work, but you can earn some OGN today. So we'll make sure to share all the details and the links. And that's a wrap. Frank, thank you so much for your time today, man.
Thank you. It was a great discussion.
Great decision to come.
Absolutely. I would do it again.
I hope you will, man. Take care, brother.
Thank you.